Okay, folks, we're up to some of the densest stuff in the whole 5 books of Moses. We're looking at the design of the Mishkan. This stuff is hard. Why? Well, first off, all the mystical stuff just confuses me. I can't keep it straight. Sometimes I think that's the point. Secondly, the technical stuff just hurts my head. Digging here and digging there, and pretty soon you've got a 500-page manuscript with no thesis and no chance of getting your doctorate because you can't actually pull a useful thought out of the whole mess. Not that I know anything about that. No. For me to get this stuff, I need to keep it real basic. I need something I can wrap my head around. So that's what we're going to try and do today. The Please Don't Sue Me for Copyright Infringement Idiot's Guide to the Mishkan. Okay, let's start with the menorah. Why? Because it doesn't take a genius to tell that the menorah is a representation of the burning bush. It has flowers and branches, and most importantly, it burns, but it isn't consumed. It represents God's core value, creation without destruction. Got it? It took me a while, but even I can manage this one. So the menorah represents a revelation. What about the other gold articles, the table and the ark? Well, the ark is easy. It represents both the revelation at Mount Sinai and the giving of the stone tablets. The angels are kind of a giveaway for the whole Mount Sinai thing. And the tablets, well, they represent the tablets. We see gold again here. There is divinity, but there's also wood, shittim wood. The word shittim implies a grudge, but wood is also not long-lasting. Altogether, it is a very human thing. The angels in the ark are pure gold, but the ark itself has wood. Why? Because the covenant requires humans before it can be real. Okay, so the ark represents God's covenant with the people. You with me? Because I'm barely holding on. We've got 2 out of 3. What about the table? Well, it also represents 2 revelations. Remember that the manna is called lechem, or bread? Here we put lechem panim, the bread of faces, on the table. What is the purpose of the manna? The Torah says that you will know that the Lord your God has brought you out of Egypt. It is our first national revelation of God. In a way, it's how we see his face. Oh, and the word for face, panah, is sprinkled all over. The manna is on the face of the desert, the people face the wilderness and see the glory of God, etc., etc. Lots of panim associated with this lechem. But the bread isn't all by itself. There's also the table. Later, the elders actually come and eat and drink and see the God of Israel. God serves them dinner. This table and its utensils have gold all over them. So while the bread represents the man, I think the table represents the meal Hashem served the elders. The table has wood at its core because without the people, the meal wouldn't amount to much. It is like the timelessness of God is investing in oh-so-limited man. Wowzers, that's a trip. We can sum it up, though. The table represents God's investment in the people. So we've got 3 articles of divine revelation. The menorah, showing God's values, the table, showing God's investment in the Jewish people, and the ark, showing the covenant between the 2. What about the rest of it? Well, God says the Mishkan should be a place where he dwells among us. The menorah, ark, and table all show his presence, so the surroundings, the structure, should represent us. And surprise, surprise, they do. Before the giving of the 10 Commandments, God describes making the people a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. A kingdom has order and rules. The Torah Reading Mishpatim, right after the 10 Commandments, starts with a civil code, laws that have specific outcomes enforced by man. The laws aren't just civil, they set the scene for a nation that can relate to God. One might call it a kingdom of priests. There are 53 rules and 56 outcomes in these laws. And guess what? The Mishkan has 53 internal pillars and 56 external ones. The pillars represent the kingdom of priests, both what we control and how we control it. What about the holy nation? The word for nation is goy. It is also used for a cow's cud. It is formless. It isn't well defined. What are the pillars covered with? Floppy hangings with angels on them. The angels are kind of a cue to the holy bit, but the floppiness is a cue to the goy bit. The hangings have no form without the pillars. The pillars are the kingdom of priests, and the hangings represent the holy nation. Together, they represent the ideal of the Jewish people. This really should be getting under my skin. After all, the pillars represent all that technical stuff that hurts my head, and the hangings, all the mystical stuff I can't keep straight. And all of it implies that I might be very, very far from the Jewish ideal. Let's move on. So, at the very beginning of the whole design process, God says he wants to dwell within the people. And the Mishkan literally represents this message in architecture. The revelations of God, menorah, table, and ark are surrounded by the representation of the people, the walls and the curtains. But the relationship isn't static. On one level, everything can move. Our job isn't to sit in one place, but to serve as the ambassadors of God's values. But on a totally different axis, there are those pesky altars. At the most basic, an altar represents our chance to invest in the timeless divine relationship, where the time-bound can touch the timeless. It is how we achieve holiness. In a way, the hangings show our values, just like the menorah shows God's. And the pillars show our dedication to the covenant, just like the ark shows his. And the altars show our investment, just like the table shows his. Looking at it this way, the whole Mishkan serves as an interface between the finite and the infinite. There's lots of meaning in the details, but I'll spare you. After all, I'm getting a bit dizzy. So, to keep it all straight, just remember this. The Mishkan is a literal representation of God dwelling within the people. If you can't keep that straight, well, join the club. Finally, if you enjoyed this, please share it. Thanks, and Shabbat Shalom.